So, welcome to another session of Path of Exile University. This is with Tytykiller, one of the best racers in the entire world. And this episode is going to be about teaching you to go faster. Like, how can you improve your times? And you have a presentation to do. But before we start with that, let's do like a quick intro so we don't instantly move away from the suit. Where do you start? What's the first step?
For speedrunning,
Yeah, like improving your times.
first step is you don't have to reinvent the wheel. The first step is you should watch somebody knowledgeable, like Zizaran, for example, and basically just copy paste what they do. You won't get the exact same result, obviously, as you don't have nearly as many hours in the game, but you can still find more success than you otherwise would by experimenting on your own.
Yeah, very true. Do you want to do your presentation first, and then we can have like a discussion thing afterwards?
Um, yeah, we can go ahead and do the presentation first. That's way there's no like overlap between the two, and
Yeah,
we can
that's what I was
expand on it.
thinking. All right,
Okay.
let's see. I'm gonna switch screens here. Uh, there. All right, we can see your
What's up?
screen. Now we can't see you, sadly.
You can't see me. Oh,
No.
all right. Uh, hang on. Is this working? You guys see that? Does this work? You guys see the
Um.
right screen?
Yeah, they
Oh
they
no, you
can.
guys see the wrong screen. Oh no. Sorry. Oh, hang on. Let me fix that really quick.
I can switch
Hang
off
on.
it.
All right, there we go. Where is it? Okay. No, I see it. Okay, we're good. Yeah, no. Okay, so
Oops.
the thing is, you guys, I just wanted to give you guys an experience, like a sneak peek on what it's like to be in the United States education system. Because, as a highly qualified professor, I can't have a basic grasp of technology. All right, here we go. Here's the real deal. Okay. People Run 101. Welcome to class, everybody. My name's Tytykiller. I've been doing PoE speedrunning for well over a year now, since about the camel races. I started off really, really bad, and now I'm just kind of sort of bad. We're going to talk about the syllabus first. We're going to first talk about my start. Then we're going to go over why we should learn how to level. Then we're going to go over the basics, such as build decisions, taking up a majority of it, as well as some neat little speedrunning tech near the end. So talking about my start, I absolutely hated leveling. Back when there was the 4-act system, so we'd complete Act 4, and you would complete the game again on Cruel. Well, my friend who got me into the game literally lapped me. Like, I was in Act 2, and he was in Act 2, but the next difficulty, and I just hated every minute of it. It felt like leveling was what stopped me from playing the end game, which is where Path of Exile felt like it started. All of my leveling experience sucked. I did no damage. I died to everything. I was just corpse running everything. And that all changed when the PoE 3.0 beta came out. And I watched a VOD from a cool guy named Den and Doom, who's now a decent friend of mine. And I watched him, and it looked like he was having fun leveling. And I was like, well, how can he have fun while leveling? It sucks. He's talking about, oh, I need a transmute for this, I need a blacksmith whetstone for that. And I didn't understand any of it, but I started to pick up after a while and studying and taking some notes. And I actually started to kind of enjoy it. I did my own few runs on the PoE 3.0 beta. And the reason why I bring this story up and why I think it's important is because this could be you, chat. This could be you. PoE 4.0, if the beta is open to other people, this could be your origin story, and you could be on Zizaran one day. Any of you. Next, we're going to talk about why you should learn how to level, going over what the point of it is. Like I mentioned before, it can be kind of enjoyable, but I find that it's only enjoyable when you know what to look for, you know what to do, the timing of it is all comes together. Leveling really is an awful experience, but it's only because you know how awful it is when you don't get that transmute that makes getting the transmute that you need feel so good. Next, I'm going to talk about the economic the implications of it. There's a website here called PoE Antiquary. I'm going to go ahead and link that for you guys.
They can see you now as well. A little
Okay, they
bit
can see me.
pixelated, but
Sure, no problem. 144p is all we need. So here's the link to PoE Antiquary. You can look at past prices for old leagues. Here we have an example. This is from Delirium League. I felt like it was the best representation of it. These are Exalted Orb prices for the first week or so. You can see that no matter what league you're in, the Exalted Orb prices will go up over time. You can see that on day one, they were worth 24C. At the end of the week one, it was worth 84C. And at the end of week two, it was 116C. Delirium is actually Exalted Orbs and Delirium in Softcore Delirium, I should say, Trade League. They were cheaper to buy than any other league, but this still shows my point that the people who get to maps faster are going to be able to buy or acquire Chaos Orbs faster so that they can invest that into things like Exalts, and they can turn those Exalts into other things such as high value items. They can hold on to the Exalts, or they could buy mirrors with them, which is a common strategy.
We actually instantly killed that website. It crashed already.
Oh, we did? Okay, so
Yeah.
the website's dead. You guys killed it, but we're gonna keep going. Really, where speedrunning starts is from goal setting. Now, Zizaran and I'm sure Steel will talk about this a lot, but you need to decide before you start leveling what kind of build you're going to make in endgame. You decide if you want to make a mapping character, a bossing character, an all-rounder character, and this should really shape like how you want to level it, because you need to think about like, well, Tytykiller released a leveling video of him leveling like this, and I want to do it like this, but like I'm gonna spend a bunch of regrets, and we'll go over stuff like that in a bit, talking about examples like that. This is just something I came up at 2 o'clock in the morning. I said determine your endpoint so that instead of thinking forwards, work your way backwards all the way back to Twilight Strand. So instead of like thinking like how am I gonna level this build, think like here's my end game point. How do I get there with less currency, with even less currency? What if I'm SSF? Okay, now, what if I'm in Blood Aqueducts right now? Okay, well, what if I'm in Chamber Innocence? What if I just started? So we can then start working our way forwards.
Very deep.
Sorry, what was that?
It's very deep. I love it. I love the quote.
Thanks. Next, we're going to go over deciding what to level. So not all leveling builds are equal. Times aren't everything. Experiences aren't the same. And the example that I'm going to give you guys is a comparison of two different builds. These are both builds that I've done before. Now, the Assassin run's only on my Twitch. It's not on my YouTube. Shameless plug. But the Orbistorm's Assassin run, I completed Act 10 Katava with all skill points and Merc Lab in 3 hours and 19 minutes. And I completed the same amount of content on Chaos Spellslinger Trickster in about 3 hours and 33 minutes. Comparing the two, we have Timmy and Sally. Now, Timmy wants to roll a cast on crit assassin. It's only really going to cost him a few respecs and a few bit of currency if he wants to level as the Orb of Storms. Now, Sally wants to level an Essence Drain Trickster, and she saw that the Orb of Storms example was a lot faster. However, this is not a good idea to level as Orb of Storms Assassin, as it required numerous respecs for the Ascendancy, for the passive points, it would require an entire gear overhaul, and that's just not worth 14 minutes. There are a lot of other examples like this, where if you're playing like a poison build, for example, you don't want to go like an elemental build to level it up, because it would cost you numerous regrets, regardless if it was faster to do that or to level as poison if you wanted to be an elemental build, etc., etc. Basically, think about how you can make your leveling experience smooth and transition it into the end game, rather than concerning yourself about the absolute fastest time. Here's what you should plan for. You should plan out what gems you should buy, what passes you should take, what items to look for, what crafts to do, where to go. The reason why Enki's Arc Witch is so successful and why I think it's one of the best guides is because it really does break down everything step by step. And this is where other content creators such as Ziz come in, where you can really follow along with what they're doing, as well as what kind of steps they've taken to get to where they are in the end game. This part, nobody else is really going to tell you about this part but me. It's considering your plan. So, Mr. Streamer, Mr. Tytykiller tells you to do something, but streamers are not all knowing. Streamers often do things wrong. Sometimes I do things wrong. Sometimes there are a few suggestions in chat that are actually just so out of this world smart that I actually adapt them. And then because I'm the big streamer, I get to call them as my own. You know what I'm saying? But no. most of the time, people suggestions are things I've already thought about, things I've shut down. But I'd say about 1% of the time, there are things that I have not considered. There are loopholes or other ways of doing things that might be better. And so it's important for you to take what streamers say with maybe a bit of salt, just because not everything we say is going to be the absolute best. You can always try to figure things out or modify things a little bit. Here, I'm going to give you an example of considering a league starter. So we're going to look at an example of Bob versus Cherry Boy, very similar to our last example. So Bob only has 2 hours to play per day. This is only because he has 4 kids, 3 jobs. He's an average redditor, and of course, he has 2 wives. Now Bob wants a boss killer, and so he goes to Mr. Streamer and he says, "Mr. Streamer, what are you going to play?" Now he looks at Mr. Cherry Boy over here. Now Mr. Cherry Boy has 72 hours to play. He has 0 kids. Now I have 3 jobs, but most other people probably are just, streaming, and I have 0 wives. Now my goal in the new league is to go for the very first Edziri in the world. To do this, I have already planned out that I'm going to play Armageddon brand Elementalist using Cremation for my single target. Now this build is incredibly fast. I expect to kill Edziri at about the 3 hour and 30-minute mark, hopefully sooner if I get a good midnight drop, and hopefully without dying as well. However, Bob should not play this build because not only is Armageddon brand Cremation Elementalist not a good boss killer, it also can't really do yellow maps. This build is specifically built for this race, for Edziri, for my goals. I have set my goals, and this build is the best build to get me there. This build is not the best build for you, chat, unless you want to contest for Edziri. Continuing on our ever-growing list of things to keep in mind when we're leveling is that socket management is actually you can imagine like the king in PoE leveling. It's the most important thing that is often overlooked. Now that somewhat goes away in PoE 2, the links to everything will be tied to the actual gems themselves instead of on items like the wands. But the socket management and the socket planning is actually should be included. So when you say that you want Aura Storms, Added Lightning, and Onslaught in your leveling notes, you should note down that you want a blue, and a green somewhere. Hopefully linked together. You should always know what sockets to look for, and you should look for them every time you come back to town unless you already have them. I see far too many people who I've either coached or people that I've looked on Twitch, and they'll be like, "Oh, I need a new wand," and they'll talk to Nessa, and they'll skip immediately to tab number 2. They won't buy a wand. They won't even look for a wand, and they'll just go on their merry way. They'll talk to Tarkly, grab their quest reward, and they won't even look for a potential glove, boot, helmet, maybe even a chest piece if it has the desired socket colors. A concept that I want to go over is socket pressure. I don't find this covered nearly as much as it should be. Socket pressure is really when you find something that's very, very nice, an item that's irreplaceable in a sense, but you need to use more gems. So in this example here, I have a ranger that is a caustic arrow toxic rain build. I want a green socket right now to fit in this blood rage, and I need to decide what is irreplaceable and what is replaceable. So say the boots have movement speed and the rest of the items have good stats. Well, I would want to replace the gloves with hopefully something that has a blue and a green socket, and that would help alleviate a tiny bit of my socket pressure. However, the biggest issue here is that my weapon is actually causing a lot of socket pressure. My green, which is mandatory for my build, is on my weapon. As someone who uses attacks, I would like to get a better weapon, hopefully with either +1 chaos gems, chaos damage multi, etc., etc. And this applies to like melee as well if you have like a red, green on a pretty bad weapon, because typically in these kind of runs, you want to find a better weapon and you want to put your links somewhere else. However, in this run, I can't replace my weapon because I have too much pressure. I can't put a green anywhere else. Say, for example, if the boots I had were blue, blue, or green, blue, but unlinked, then I could put whattever's in my gloves, Skitterbots in this example, Blood Rage, and whatever other gem is in my boots at the moment. And then I found green, green, green gloves. In this example, I could replace my weapon anytime I wanted, anytime I found a better one. Like I said, weapons are the most important if you are a melee or a ranged player. Now, if inventory management is king, XP management is the queen. Typically, you want to be 3 levels below the zone, and this is going to increase by 1 every 16 levels. Now, this does not apply to Acts 1 and 2. In those zones, usually you'll be around the same level of the zone. And my general rule of thumb for XP is that you want to kill large groups of monsters. You want to kill almost every blue pack, and you want to kill rares if they are near other things. Now, the reason why I say almost every blue pack is because these are not guaranteed rules. These are not things that you should always follow. There are certain mobs in the game that are a lot tankier than others. For example, the Jolem boys in Act 2, these guys are way tankier than anything else you can face, like the small little bandits, not Alir or Kraitlin, but like just the normal mobs that walk around. These mobs are way tankier than those ones. So I would often skip these if they weren't already next to a bunch of other mobs. Now, layout management in this case would be like a pawn. Now, layout management or layout reading, your ability to read layouts, whatever you want to call it, is extremely overrated. I get asked about how to read layouts all the time. The reason why it's overrated is because it takes hours upon hours to study. And ultimately, what it leads to is you getting less experience because you're killing less monsters. You can think of it like, sure, you're pathing through each zone correctly. However, you're going to be killing less monsters on your way there because you won't be finding as many because you're not backtracking as much. On top of this, you'll be finding less loot, which overall makes your leveling experience worse. I know it sucks to backtrack, but it also sucks way more to just stare at a layout. Just taking screenshot after screenshot after screenshot, saving them in a folder, comparing them, looking at if this wall is flat, then this wall is curved, and I have to actually go top right, but then it's actually a top middle, but then no, wait, no, it's a loop-de-loop layout. You can completely become a qualified racer without studying any of these layouts, and obviously this goes away in PoE 2. I assume that we'll have more things like believe it's the
Gonna be
grain
a lot
gate,
more
for
random,
example.
yeah.
Yeah, it'll be a lot more random. But in Act 8, the grain gate, most people know that the dead bodyguards on the ground will lead you to the correct way to exit the zone. I assume we'll have a lot more instances like that in PoE 2, more so than studying prisoners' gates for 4 hours or upper prison. Like I said, I know it sucks, you guys. I know backtracking really hurts, but this really only applies to you if you're like one of the best racers.
There are
I
quite
didn't
a
even
lot of
really
layouts that are very easy to learn as well. You know what we could actually
true.
do would be to make a list over, like, for example, I'd say like upper person is like something that's a bit harder, but
Yep.
then Val Ruins is actually incredibly easy and probably where you can lose the most time.
Vol City is also pretty easy to learn.
That is the one I meant. Yeah, the one before Araceli.
Yeah, yeah. I thought you were talking about Vol Ruins in Act
No,
2.
sorry, Val Ruins is actually a bit harder. I meant Val City.
Yeah, no problem. In that case, it's usually like a Z or in some cases like an N, but depends on the layout.
Right.
Uh, Next, I want to go over utilizing your resources. So something you'll notice is that speedrunners actually utilize their currency very, very well. I'm not going to go over everything on screen. Basically, each act has different gems. Everybody knows this. However, these gems have level requirements, and those level requirements determine how much they cost. Now, going back to planning again, you can see how important it is to know exactly how many transmutes, how many alterations, how many chance orbs you need per run. Um, these are all very important things to know. And if you, for whatever reason, need a chance orb in your run, you can actually buy a chance orb for refusing at the vendor in Act 3. The reason why I have a note here at the bottom that says that gems require level 38, cost 1 alchemy, and that they're rarely bought is because usually you will just take the quest reward at the end of Act 4 and you'll grab the level 38 gem. It's pretty uncommon for me to ever buy one of those gems for an alchemy, and I don't generally like using a Jolem either. So here's what you guys came for, right? The speedrunning strats. Today I'm going to be revealing the hidden strategies. Some of these aren't even used by other racers. Most of them are pretty virgin min-max. These are going to take your 10-hour katavas down to 9 hours and 55 minutes. So, you know, these are more important when you're hitting a wall and you're struggling with getting your time down. Here I have the waypoint trick. So I discovered this about a year ago. I'm not going to claim that I was the first person to discover this. I'm just the first person that I know of that I did it. I showed Havoc it, and then Havoc showed me like 20 different strategies, and I was like, "Here's this one thing I found." So, if you're wondering where the Tytykiller in the strat meme comes from, that's where it's from. So here I have two different examples of people looking at a waypoint. I'm going to show you the examples first. I'm going to show you why they're different. So here we have a classic Steel Mage. Can you see that all right?
Fucking Monday events.
So you can see that Steel Mage is walking over to the waypoint, clicks the waypoint, and moves his mouse over to the coast. Now this is great and all, but this leaves error for clicking either to go to town, clicking away, not having your mouse in the right position. I discovered about a year ago, and I've got an example here from Exile, where you can actually click on the waypoint, open the minimap or the world folder, move your mouse over the icon, and then as soon as your character touches the waypoint, you can click on it immediately. So here you can just see it playing a repeat. He clicks on the waypoint, opens up the world map, mouses over the coast, closes the map, and then as soon as his character touches the waypoint, you can click on the coast. And that way he can prepare his mouse for wherever else he needs to be. I pretty much went over it. Click on the waypoint from far away, open up the world map. The default key on this is U. You can hover over your destination, and you can left click when your character touches the waypoint. Next, we're going to go over vendor walking. So vendor walking is actually very hard to learn. It was actually made a lot harder in Metamorph, I think. If it's unintentional, I don't know if that's the correct spelling of unintentional, but
What's that?
It's not. All right. Anyways, if it's not intentional, then GG, please fix it. But it's been like this for a long time, man. So I'm gonna assume that this is here to stay. To be honest, though, vendor walking is pretty easy once you get the timing down. Basically, you click the vendor, you move your mouse away as you approach them, and then you click in the new spot as soon as you touch the vendor. Very similar to the waypoint trick. So here we have an average vendor. This is what most people would do. Talk to Nessa, purchase the items, get whatever you need after looking at it, and then walk away afterwards. However, with vendor walking, you can go ahead and click the vendor, click away, purchase the items, buy what you need, click the vendor, and click away. And you can see that this saves you a few extra seconds of town. Pretty overrated. Like I said, it's going to take your 10-hour katava down to 9 hour and 55 minutes. So, next trick is the smoke line flame dash trick. So in this instance, you're going to throw the mine. In this case, smoke mine. You're going to detonate the mine. Then you're going to flame dash. I get a lot of questions on this. They're both movement abilities. Yes, they do share charges. However, smoke mine grants you movement speed for a few seconds after you use it. By doing this, you essentially use two charges at once, which means that your movement abilities are on cooldown for longer, in a sense, because you have to wait for your charges to build up again. So this means that you're running more, which means that you have better uptime of the movement speed buff from smoke mine. On top of that, there's a mechanic that they added a while ago. I think it was back in Metamorph. I'm not sure. Where dash skills like Flame Dash actually cast very, very fast if you haven't casted a dash recently. I believe Leaf Slam has this change as well. And Smoke Mine does not share this dash cooldown, whatever you want to call it, where it makes Flame Dash nearly instant. So here's a normal Flame Dash. You can see that the first cast is very fast, and then after that, there's a bit of an animation. It's super short. It's maybe half a second or so, but it's still pretty noticeable. If you compare that to the Smoke Line Flame Dash, however, you can see that you essentially do two dashes at once, and then because you're running, you're able to make use of that extra bit of movement speed. That's only going to be anywhere from 10 to 20%, but it's still pretty impactful, as you would like to have 10 to 20% movement speed boosts at any point in leveling. On to the next trick, we have the 4 flash strat. So I forgot to note this, but Ty23 actually invented this strategy. I completely shamelessly stole it from him. Most people don't know why you do it. However, most people also don't know that if you pick up a flask when you have an empty slot, the flask will actually automatically go into your flask bar, whatever you want to call it, your little tool belt. In this case, So here we have in the bottom left, you can see that the player, as soon as this goes away, the player has 5 flasks on. In order to equip this flask, they would have to pick up the flask, open their inventory, put the flask on, and then put away their small life flask. Or they could open their inventory, click the large life flask, then click over one of their flasks, the small life flask in this example, and click away. However, because of the 4 flask strategy, they just click it and it automatically goes into their slot. I only really recommend this for people who feel confident, as pretty often I'll only have like one small life flask and I'll go into Brutus or something. And it's like, well, I don't really need a more than just a small life flask here. However, most people might feel uncomfortable with that. So this one shouldn't be used by everybody. The 4 flash strat isn't something that I really recommend to become common. If you need an extra life flask, then keep the extra life flask. There's nothing wrong with that. This one, I don't see many people doing this one. I don't want to say I invented it or anything, but I just kind of thought it was cool that I could do this since I've started speedrunning. Basically, some gems gain damage as they level. So this is things like added lightning, added cold, orb storm, stormblast mine, pretty much most of the spell gems in the game. However, let's imagine that you don't have a space for one of these gems. So you pick up Herald of Thunder or something like that. Herald of Thunder gives you extra lightning damage to spells and attacks. However, if you don't level it up, then it's just going to stay level 1. It's not going to give you nearly as much damage. So what can we do? Well, Hillock actually drops you an unlinked blue, green, red weapon every time on every class. I always put this in my offhand, so if I find something like an added lightning, a Herald of Thunder, an added cold, Herald of Ice, I can always put it there and it can keep leveling up. Next, we're going to go over inventory management. So if you left click on an item and then left click away, everybody knows that you will drop it on the ground. But if you left click an item and use another move only command, I like to use space, other people use Q, whatever you prefer, you will actually move in the direction of your cursor. So here you can see an example. I click on the boots and then I click away, and you can see that I just drop them. And those are the move and speed boots that I wanted to equip. However, in this example over here, you can see that I click on the boots and I hold down space and I can actually keep moving in this direction and I can move wherever I want and I can put them away. This is really important for setting up your inventory towards spaces you would like. I like to set up my inventory in a very specific way, and we'll go over that on the next slide, where I want you guys to keep your currency in the same spot. Doesn't matter where they go. It doesn't matter if you follow my layout for inventory, Havoc's layout, Exile's layout, anybody's in particular's layout for inventory. It doesn't matter if your Skulls of Wisdoms are in the top right, the top left, the bottom. It doesn't matter. But basically, you should always keep them where they feel comfortable for you. So if you always map and you have Scrolls of Wisdoms in the bottom left and the portals to the right of that, then do that when you're speedrunning. You want them to be as comfortable as possible when you open your inventory. You want to think at a moment's notice or be able to, analyze how much currency do I have at this moment in time, because you need to know exactly what you want to sell. You want to know when you want to sell that. You want to know why you want to sell what you want to sell. In this case, or in every case, I should say, selling unidentified items like magic or rare items will give you transmutation shards. Selling identified magic and rare items will give you alteration shards. It's important to note, however, that if a rare item has 6 modifiers on it, it will not sell for alteration shards, and instead it will sell for augmentation shards, or not shards, it'll just sell for an augmentation, just 1 orb of augmentation. An additional note is that unique items don't sell for anything more than 1 scroll fragment if you sell them unidentified, so it is always worth identifying them, even if you're going to sell them to the vendor or trade them away to another player. So never leave them unID'd. For the racing setup, as far as like things to download to be a top racer, we only really use WSplit or LiveSplit. This is to keep track of our times. I like to use WSplit. I find it to be cleaner. Most people agree. Some people like using LiveSplit because it has an auto split feature. However, I found that it's a bit outdated. I don't like using it. So I just kind of keep track of my time with WSplit. In addition to this, you can use a logout and hideout macro. These are pretty generic across PoE. A lot of people already use them. I typically don't use them that much. I die when I log out using a macro, or, people have said I use a /exit macro instead, so I might try that instead. So yeah, we've got some leftover time. I don't know if you guys want to see like a small Act 1 speed run, if I should answer questions, if we should do both. What do you think, Ziz?
Yeah, I mean, you could do a speed run while we talk to chat. I think people would like
Yeah, I
that.
can do that. Yeah, sure.
You're
You guys
so
think it's a good
prepared. This
idea?
is awesome.
Badass.
I even took notes. Be fast. Don't be Sally. Streamers bad. Have 2 wives.
Yep, that's right, my man. All right, I'm gonna log in then.
Awesome.
What do you want to see here?
Which Stormbrand and Muling? Talk about Muling is something we missed, I think.
Sure, we can talk about Muling. Boop. You see that okay?
Yep. We have your
Yep.
login details
Alright.
now.
Let me delete a couple characters from my race account. Boop. Let's do standard. There we go. Something that most people don't know actually is that the first letter of your name will actually determine like what order you're in. Your characters are listed in alphabetical order, and so when you create a character, you can see that if I had this character and this character, it would be nice to know that when I log out on this character, if I want to log into the other character, this character is next in line because it's the next alphabetical letter. So I would immediately exit a character select, go down on my keyboard, and hit enter to go to the next character.
Could you turn down the dialogue volume a bit?
Yeah, sure, I can do that. So I'll start most of my characters that I want to do either with A or Z, and then I'll do the other one.
Their curiosity and darkness and depravity.
Something you can do is that this standing up animation is going to take quite a while, and so instead I just click and then I log out, and then when you'll see that when I log back in, I'll actually be standing up. I'm going to go ahead and start a
I
little
think you
timer.
need to turn down all of the game volume, actually. It's pretty loud.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure, no problem. Just turn that way down.
Nice.
Boop.
Perfect.
Boop, 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 boop. Cool.
Nice.
So you don't have to copy this or anything. I like making one Scion with an A, the Witch with the Z. Doesn't really matter though. And I just say 3, 2, 1, go. And something you can do is you can type NN. This will look for runner's boots. However, I feel confident enough just typing with my left hand, just copying in runner. If you type in NN, it'll look for some shields. Yeah, it should be on the right filter.
Mm-hmm.
I think that using the right filter is probably the biggest hurdle that people have, and so to counteract that, I've released my own filters. Made a YouTube video on it, just released them for free. Wanted to reduce the barrier to entry to speedrunning as much as possible, so that we can see more people in speedrunning, more people having fun, in my opinion.
So what Taitai is doing now is he's making a Scion character just for Onslaught.
Yep.
You don't always make a Scion. Like, for example, like that's generally when you play a Witch, but if you play... What do you meal with Shadow now?
You don't mule. If you want to go like a Chaos Singer, you want to level as like Caustic Arrow, you will mule from Ranger.
Right.
So that way you get the bow, you'll get you'll get Caustic Arrow, you get Pierce, and you get 3 Scrolls of Wisdom. So I find it to be pretty valuable. Yeah. This is a common situation if you're in the Jawland race and you don't have enough mana to kill the mob, or you're just scared, you can actually just run around them in a counterclockwise.
For some reason, you get more damage while standing like straight below him.
Yeah, I messed that one up. So you can see the vendor walk here. I grab this gem, and I'm going to look for a blue, blue, green, and a blue, blue, blue. As I've said before, looking for your colors is the most important thing. We found our blue, blue, green. There it is. And the iron ring is actually very important because the iron ring will help us make a resist ring. Boop. Go to skip all tutorials.
Something people always, I see a lot of racers mess up a lot as well, is having an empty like glove, helmet, or boot slot early on when you're very, very low on sockets. So sometimes you'll find like a blue-green unlinked glove, and people will sometimes just not pick it up. So early on, when it gets to the point that you want to have both Flame Dash and Smoke Mine, you might just be missing a socket for a green gem, but you don't even have a glove slot.
Yep, I've had that happen to me plenty of times. That's actually a really great point. So these boots, they're 6 armor. They're not anything notable. If I don't find any movement speed, then it doesn't hurt me to keep using them until I don't need them anymore. Reason being, like you said, if I need a green socket later on, which I do for smoke coin, then I'm going to go ahead and use that instead.
And that being said, you'll always see a lot of racers not wearing a chest piece. The reason for that is is it 3 or 5% movement speed penalty?
It's 3% for smaller chest pieces, and it's 5% for larger chest pieces, like the armor pieces.
Yeah. So generally,
you
you'll
can
see most
actually-
racers will start wearing a chest either around the time where you find a 4-link chest, or when you're like level 24 and you need more gems for Spellslinger, or when you just really, really need gems. So like Lightning Spire, Spellslinger, but around like level 24 to 28, you'll see a lot of people put on a chest.
Yep. Yeah, I usually, my rule of thumb for equipping a chest piece is going to be when I find a good chest piece, or just when I, need the sockets for it.
So, Tai, let's talk a little bit about playing fast like this, but it's also a new league. When do you experiment with a league mechanic to see if it's something that like might really, really boost? Because sometimes, for example, Delirium, right? That was insane early on for just running through a portal, killing a few monsters, and boom, you get loads of currency. How do you decide that early on?
So usually I practice the new league in standard, just like this, and so I get a lot of experience, not playing with the league mechanic, and so I like to catch my stride. I like to make a decent character. I'll be farming in typically Chamber of Innocence is where I'll first go ahead and try it out. If I have someone saying like, "Oh my goodness, it's insane! You have to do this mechanic right this second," then I'll go ahead and do it. However, for the most part, I've practiced without it. I know my character doesn't need the extra power of doing the league mechanic. However, if you find it fun, then it's perfectly acceptable for you to do it. You should never forsake fun for the sake of speed. In this case, oh my. Wisdoms and transmutations and alterations are basically the lifeblood of early game. These things are extremely valuable. People don't realize how important wisdoms are, and I apparently have 200 of them now, I guess, which can help me out if I need to identify a bunch of items. Basically, even if I find an item that I don't particularly want to equip, I can still go ahead and identify it because I've got so much currency to do so anyways. So like, for example, if I just wanted to equip these gloves here, I could just go ahead and do that. Oop.
So, what about filter sounds? Because currently we're hearing custom filter sounds. How often do you bother doing a bunch of custom filter sounds?
I think that filter sounds are important so that you don't miss things off screen. Sometimes you'll hear things like a transmutation drop off screen. You'll hear things like an alteration drop off screen. And like I've said before, these are extremely important bits of currency that you need to have. And so these are things that you really want to be able to go back to pick up early on. I have updated my own filter to have text-to-speech for all the currency and stuff. I don't think it's the best filter in the world. If you have any recommendations, you can let me know. But I spent, I don't know. I planned to sit down and only spend like 2 hours on my filters, and then I ended up spending, I think it was like an 11-hour stream. And I wanted to do it for the boys. So,
Nice.
you guys, the boys.
That's pretty OP.
In Tidal Island, a common theme or a common idea is that if you find the little ridge or the little ledge thing, that you'll actually go on the opposite side. However, this is not true. It's fastest just to hug the left-hand side, no matter what layout you get. This is because even if you do find the ridge, it's fastest just to keep going through it. So there's an alteration. I only need one alteration in Act 1. So everything else I find, I'm just going to sell unidentified. This is because I need transmutation shards so that I can eventually get my wand craft, and I'm going to need 2 more for my Jade Amulet combo. So you can see that I've already prepared my inventory well in advance, so I know exactly what I want to buy, what I want to sell. I'm not going to go over all the gems that I'm going over. I mean, I can if you want me to. But...
So when you're vendoring and buying wands now, for example, you'll see a lot of players on day 1 try to look for like +1 chaos, +1 lightning. Do you ever sacrifice blue, blue, green to get something like that?
Very rarely will I do something like that. Here, it's actually important for me to do something like this. Boop. Boop. But I don't have onslaught on the whole time. No, it was up here.
And what about the Quicksilver recipe for boots? Do you ever use that early?
I only use that with excess Quicksilvers, so you see that I have I actually dropped a Quicksilver. I got lucky to find one. In this case, it's actually okay for me to go ahead and, not do the Den in Act 2. The Den is a very nice quest to do. It drops you a guaranteed Quicksilver. It's a decently high eye level, so it can roll Adrenaline as well. So I always like to do the Den quest. You can skip over it, however, as we've dropped a second Quicksilver here. Go ahead and move some gems around. There we go.
And what about the skill point quests? Like we saw now that you put a portal down at the staircase in Submerged.
Yep.
Like at League Start, do you always do the skill point quest early, or do you prefer to like gain an extra minute just to keep name in the life?
So I believe that speedrunning is a bit of a double-edged sword. It obviously helps a lot of people learn how to level faster. However, a lot of people have a lot of how would I say, bad ideas of it, or the wrong idea of it, I should say, where they think like, oh, well, I can just load up Ty23's Act 5 world record, and I'm just going to copy that, because that'll be a good league starter. But that's an awful idea, because that build does not do any passive points. It does not do any of the trials. It does not do any of the... it doesn't do any like farming or anything like that. The sole goal is just to get through the campaign literally as fast as possible. And so on League Start, I will always try to do all my passive points, all my skill points, all my all the good optional quests, I should say, as well as the labs, and I will farm experience as well. Here I want to go ahead and prepare the wand recipe. So I know that I need a magic wand, an alteration, and a sapphire ring, which I believe Zizaran has plenty of videos talking about that as well, as I have a few on my YouTube. So I'm actually going to prepare that for after I do Dweller of the Deep. Not many people know this, but if you actually go up here, you can skip the whole animation of the goat coming down. I don't like to save Navali. The goat is kind of scary early on. And by doing that, I'm able to kill the goatmen that are on top of that little ledge and gain the experience from killing them as well, since you're not going to gain anything if the gigantic guy comes down. So here's an example of the waypoint trick again. I've already prepared my waypoint in advance. I'll go and click this. And now, the reason why I placed my waypoint where I did, or my portal where I did, is just because I know that the entrance to Dweller of the Deep in the Flooded Depths is always going to be before the waypoint. A lot of this stuff Zizaran's actually covered in plenty of videos before, but I think that it's important to,
It's
reiterate
good to cover.
stuff. Yep. So here's an example of like, there's a blue pack over there, so I'm going to go out of my way to kill it, even though I wouldn't spend too much time doing so. I'm planning ahead, so even though I'm nowhere near killing Brutus, I'm still planning for what do I need by then. I know that I need a total of 3 alterations, and so or 3 transmutes. I've already completed 1 from transmuting my wand. Now I need 1 for Jade Amulet and 1 for Smoke Vine. So my plan is to sell items unidentified so that I can go ahead and get that. So I'm going to go ahead and log out. And I just like to use enter on my keyboard. We're going to go ahead and take the wand. There we go. It's like added lightning. We've got our sapphire ring and our alteration and the magic wand. We're gonna go ahead and sell those, and we can just sell the rest. The reason why I didn't sell all these at the same time is because it might have messed up with one of the wands here. There's no reason to look for anything else here. We're gonna go ahead and grab our skill point, and again, I'm just gonna look for something that will help alleviate some pressure. So there's a green, blue, for example. Cost 1 scroll of wisdom to do that. The reason why this wand craft is so important is I can actually go ahead and show you guys. My damage with Frostbomb is 44 right now, just an average one, and with the Wandcraft it is now 84. So it's a pretty big increase to my damage.
So a lot of people are probably going to be wondering why Sapphire over a Topaz ring.
So I get that question actually an incredible amount. The reason why is because Frostbomb actually applies exposure, which reduces their cold resistance by 25%. No matter what the boss, you're going to want to apply that just to reduce the resist. And because they have less cold resist, then we do more cold damage. Therefore, I think that we The Sapphire Ring pulls slightly ahead. However, it's almost no difference at all compared to the Topaz Ring.
What about how long do you keep Frostbomb, and when do you switch over to Orb of Storms?
I switch over to Orb of Storms when I'm level 20. At that point, I like to do 2 different firecrafts, and at that point, I will keep the Orb of Storms with a Herald of Ash and a Wave of Conviction, and then at 28, I will go Armageddon Brand with a self-cast Cremation setup. In this zone, there's actually these guys right here. They will cast Enfeeble, and so your goal is to basically run past them as much as possible. We're level 9 here, which is perfect. That's exactly where we want to be.
Ignorance brought you here, sister.
Yeah, usually these like rule of thumbs or XP thresholds that you want to hit are just kind of like, they could be within a level or two. If you're level 8 on Brutus, that's kind of low. If you're level 9 on Brutus, it's pretty good. If you're level 10 on Brutus, that's pretty decent as well. Level 11, you're kind of pushing it at that point.
So lately, Chaos Slingers are very popular. What do you do for early damage on a Chaos Slinger? Because you don't really have many options for like the flat lightning recipe. There is a spell damage recipe, but do you bother doing it?
So I didn't invent this strategy. I believe, Soupline was the one to inform me that I can actually use Mines with Toxic Rain, and it has a very insane single target. So you go Toxic Rain, Last Chain Mine support, as well as Swift Assembly, and all of your single target from levels 1 to 28 will be solved. Again, I know that I need transmutations more than I need alterations, so I'm going to go ahead and sell things unidentified, pick up a Jade Amulet, and pick up a Smoke Mine. From there, I'm going to pick up the Flame Dash, and pretty soon we can start doing the Smoke Mine Flame Dash combo that I went over earlier. So I like to use Frostblink with Onslaught, especially after I get the Wandcraft. It actually kills a lot of mobs. You'll see if I use Frostblink here, boom, killed the whole pack. Oh, Jade Amulet dropped out of the ground. Cool. Right after I needed it to. Anyways, we can just keep going. I know that from here on out, I only really need one more transmute to make this wand magic, and I need a bunch of alterations because I need 2 for the wands, and I also need a 1 for the skitterbots, as well as 1 for a Wave of Conviction, and anything else is just kind of nice to have.
What about managing your potions? Like, for example, if you're running into Merveil with a small mana potion, you're going to struggle on mana to kill her. Do you ever go back to town to buy potions if you feel like you have a small for Merveil, for example?
The only time I'll ever go back to town for potions is at level 24. If I have if I have like small life flasks and I'm, in Act 3 or something, or maybe like mid Act 2, then I'll go ahead and change it. However, I have done many runs where I feel confident enough just using a small life flask pretty much all the way up. So here I'm looking around for the waypoint. If I don't find it, I'm just going to place a portal, and I'm going to look for the Ship Graveyard Cave. I went ahead and found it. From here, the optimal pathing in Fairgraves is actually to find the waypoint in Ship Graveyard, go through the Ship Graveyard Cave, grab the All Flame, then you'll go to Merveil's Caverns, you'll grab the waypoint there, take the waypoint from Merveil's Caverns back to the Ship Graveyard. You will then kill Fairgraves, log out, grab the skill point, and this way you can prevent yourself from backtracking. You can get your level 12 gem, and you can get the skill point at once. A lot of people make the mistake of placing a portal right outside the cave. You don't have to do that, as when you leave, you spawn right outside of the cave anyways. So here, I'm going to go off to Caverns of Wrath. I didn't find the waypoint, and so instead of finding the waypoint, I just placed a portal instead. In this case, I'm going to think about how I want to take on Merveil. Like you said, I only have a small life flask. However, the Sapphire Ring will really help, and Core Rings are also really nice to have. In this case, these mobs aren't too scary, so I can actually just go ahead and put in a couple passive points, and we're going to go ahead and prepare our mines ready up for Fairgraves, and then I'll spawn in a second, and he'll go down, no time. And this is why the Wandcraft is very important. From my experimentation on the PB2 beta at ExileCon, it was actually extremely important to do the Wandcraft, and so I recommend that you start using it if you're going to be a spellcaster.
Welcome.
Here, this is pretty much the last time that I look for MS boots. If you want to buy a life flask, you can feel free to do so. I might actually die to Merveil. I have plenty of Scrolls of Wisdom, so there's not too much incentive for me to not use it. However, Scrolls of Wisdoms are used throughout the entire run. You have to view your currency as like, where is it going to be forever, basically. I am going to use Scrolls of Wisdoms in Act 2, I'm going to use them in Act 3, I'm going to use them in Act 4. You know, I'm going to use them in Blood Aqueduct. So no matter what, Scrolls of Wisdoms are important. A cool little vendor recipe that you can do. It's not really a recipe, but if you sell Blacksmith's Whetstones, you will get 4 Scrolls of Wisdoms from the vendor. And if you sell Armor Scraps, you'll get 2 Scrolls of Wisdoms from the vendor.
Something that's actually used by more later game as well. Some league mechanics will give you a boatload of Parandus coins. So we don't know if Heist is going to do this. But both Delirium and Harvest give a lot of early Parandus coins. And you'll see a lot of speedrunners will vendor those just to get wisdoms and stuff early.
Yep. You'll see a lot of other currencies. You know, if I don't need transmutation shards, because I've already got all the transmutes I need, I'll actually vendor you maybe a transmute for 4 Scrolls of Wisdoms instead. This is a classic example of like, wow, it really sucks to backtrack, but wow, it also feels really good to get a lot of XP. My character gets stronger, Frostbomb gains a level. You know, we're closer to 13. Didn't quite get to it before Merville, so I couldn't equip EO, so that's fine. Here I'm fine equipping another flask. And you can see that I just have a small life flask, so... if you don't feel confident though, you should just gear up, maybe get a bit more cold resist, and just make your character a bit stronger. There's nothing wrong with that. As long as you just don't get hit.
Just don't get hit, forehead.
Yep, the Havoc advice.
I think a lot of people want to see a Slush played after Merveil.
It's not going to be good, but
That's fine.
what's scariest about Merveil is actually the ads, as well as that projectile that she throws out. So we want to be very, very careful of the ads. You know, it's very easy to get frozen here, and then also die. And I think the time's probably going to be like 20 minutes, which is pretty XD, but we'll see. So Merveil's downs, found 2V, 1G boots, and the leather belt is actually very important. These things are insane. You can see that my life is only 230. I equip this, it goes up to 260. Slash plate is looking like 17.5.
That's pretty good for skill points.
Yep, everything done. It's not too
While
bad.
teaching.
It's nice
Yep.
to see there's still some
Very
life
good.
in this
BBG1.
twitching corpse of the
BBG
continent.
1 dropped in the back, but I've already got 2. And this is another classic example of things being very important to know where your run is at. So I know that I don't have to backtrack for that because I've already got 2 BBG 1s. Here I'm 13, therefore I can go Elemental Overload. You'll notice that earlier on in the run, I had stockpiled a number of skill points and I didn't use them. This is because I knew that they would give me things like plus 10 intelligence, plus 10 strength. And at that point in time, I didn't really need to do those because they just weren't relevant. But things like Elemental Overload, which gives me 40% more elemental damage if I've crit recently, but my critical strikes do no damage, is a huge node. Oops, I should have let that ghost infect that guy. Now, if I didn't have the second Quicksilver, I would place a portal here for the den. I would go onto the Crossroads, and then I would take the Crossroads waypoint back to town, go through the portal, do the den, and log out. However, speedrunning is not all set in stone. Everything is, you know, adaptable. You know, your run changes depending on what level you are. You know, how many mobs you kill, what kind of packs you decide to kill. If I notice that I start to become under-leveled, then I'll stop for way more. So here, I want to let the ghost infect the rare mob. Now, ideally, I would hurt the rare mob a bit. This is because it's going to drop me way more rare items. So there's 2
Do you
rare
have
items.
MS boots right now?
I do now. 15 MS.
Nice. I was gonna say, would you ever do the den just to vendor the Quicksilver for MS boots?
I would not. I think that it's a big use of time, whereas like getting a Quicksilver flask is like 40 MS, and it's up a decent amount of time, whereas MS boots are only 10%. Or if you upgrade them with movement speed boots like this, with an augmentation and a Quicksilver flask, you can get 5% more movement speed. So, say you have boots with 10% movement speed on them, you sell them with Quicksilver and an augmentation because you found an extra Quicksilver, you can get 15 MS boots. Did I say 10%?
So, a lot of people are asking about essences. Is it always worth doing them? And what about if they're really tanky?
So you need 2 essences because you need 2 rare wands for the level 20 craft, and I find that it's very important to find those. Essences also depend on what kind of essence they are. So not all essences are created equal. This hatred, for example, will give me cold resist. I like to use these kind of resist essences on pieces of gear that I'll use for a long time. So like this helmet would be a good example. Using it on a leather belt is an amazing example. But overall, I'll use it on pieces of gear that I'll keep for a while. But the most important thing is that I need 2 essences at minimum, or maybe an alchemy instead, so that I can do the wand craft.
So if
And
you're
so I
really
know-
desperate, would you do like an essence in a stone golem?
If I was super desperate, I would have to already be like late to doing the craft. But in that case, yes.
And for those of you who didn't see earlier, somebody was asking in chat about the wand craft. It's a any of the elemental rings, and then it can be white, blue, or rare, depending on the strength you want and level requirement. 1 alteration and 1 magic wand will then give you the elemental damage of that specific craft. So I believe the level, what's the level requirements? It's like 14, 20, and what's the lowest one?
8.
8. So 8, 14, 20. Depending if it's a white ring, a yellow ring, or a blue ring.
So I'm actually cursed with enfeeble. I'm going to chunk Fidelitas, and then I'm going to let this ghost infect him, and I'm going to just throw down a bunch of mines here and hope that he doesn't one-shot me.
Yeah, something
And
that's
then
very important to remember is that Smoke Mine is not just a good movement ability, it also blinds the monsters. So if you throw the Smoke Mine on top of the monster and stand inside the smoke cloud, it has a 50% chance to miss you already, on top of your other defenses.
Correct. Now I'm basically out of scrolls, but I have plenty of alterations. I'm feeling good. I can buy Skitterbots, I can buy Wave. I'm going to pick up a Herald of Ash. Now this is very specific to my build. You don't have to copy every setup that I'm doing, but you can see that I've already planned well in advance what gems I need to pick up, how much currency I need to do it. Now this run has been very fruitful in terms of how much currency I've dropped and everything like that. In this case, I would never stop for a red beast. Red beasts are scary, they take a while. You know, a ghost and a red beast is just asking to stop for like an entire minute. Something neat about this zone, Riverways, that not many people know about, is that if you find the waypoint very close to town and you're already level 16, which is good enough for Weaver, then you can go ahead and just reset the zone from here and hope that you find a zone like this instead. So let's say that you enter Riverways at 16, that's a bit over what you need to be. So you click on the waypoint and you control click on it to reset the zone. And you hope for a layout like the one that we are currently in, where the waypoint is right next to the exit and you only have to walk a short distance.
What about talking to Einar at the start of zones? Do you ever do that before getting a beast up?
Einhar's a little finicky with doing vendor walking. You know, he wants to have a real long conversation with you. He's, you know, all about like respecting his elders and how kids these days don't really know how to do that. You know, people are vendor walking away from conversation all the time. I mean, I do it in college, so it's understandable, but you know, I still want the guy to follow me. Unfortunately, he doesn't really follow me. I will only do it when I have a boss encounter. But most of these boss encounters, you can actually encounter Einhar in the boss room if there's a specific room for that. So here's a Greater Life Flask. You can see the 4 flash strat kicking in, and it's going to automatically slot in, so I don't have to put it on. So, for example, with the boss room strategy, in like the Ancient Pyramid, for example, the Einhar will show up as soon as a like, let's say you find Einhar in the Ancient Pyramid, he will still be there if you go all the way to the what's it called? Like the boss room at the very top with the ball. They'll be in that room, standing there. I should have leveled those gems up earlier. Honestly, if you find a crit shrine like way later on and you're using Elemental Overload, you can respec the, like take the point out for a second. Super sweaty min-max. You don't have to do that, but you'll notice that usually around this point when I place down a very large mine sequence, then I'm also going to throw a smoke mine out, exactly for the reason you said earlier, is because it makes the mobs attack you less often.
Respeccing EO can be really nice for if you're ever scared of like ascending and you get a crit shrine in lab.
Yep, that's also a very good time to respec it just in normal lab, because if you find a dark shrine that gives you crit, you can keep it for the rest of the lab, and it basically makes every one of your hits guaranteed critical strike. The pathing that I take in Act 2 is pretty standard. I think that most people should probably follow a similar pathing. We go to the Chamber of Sins first. This is because killing Fidelitas gives us a level 16 gem. In a lot of cases, this is a Herald. This is a, some sort of a useful gem like Blood Rage or something along those lines. After that, we do Weaver. This is because it gives you a level 18 gem. And then after that, I like to do the Bandits. Most builds nowadays will either kill all the bandits or they will help Alira. And it just kind of depends on, like, are you going to need the resist for whatever reason for like leveling, or are you going to be a crit build, or is it just better to kill all for a couple passive points? So
Are you saying you're not going to help Oak?
I am not helping Oak. She doesn't give me 40 life anymore.
That time.
Yes, at times indeed. But Oak is actually a bit interesting. Oak can destroy your mines, whether using Blast Chain, Toxic Rain, or Stormblast Mine. So I always make sure to throw down a Smoke Mine here, because he does Sweep, and Sweep, as you all know, is a very broken ability that will destroy all your mines in one little go. So, or Flash Strike kicking in again. In this run, I like to help Alira because it's purely for a leveling build. Alira gives you 15% all resist when you help her, which is nice for leveling. However, if your build says to kill all the bandits, and you're thinking about helping Alira for smoother leveling experience, I'd recommend that you just kill all the bandits and you just accept the fact that maybe you should just craft resist on a couple pieces of gear. I can go back to town in a second and show you guys that you can actually craft resist on your own items for a single transmute. I believe the craft requires you to be level 10, but every account starts with that by default. So here, I'm actually going to grab Dark Arts. Now, I don't get any bit faster for taking the skill point now versus taking it later, so I'm going to go do the trial. One interesting thing is that when you log out, you actually go back to the last town you were in. So in this example, if I went back to the Act 1 town, and then I took the Act 1 town waypoint to the crossroads and went and did this, and then I logged out after doing the trial over here, it would actually put me back into the Act 1 town rather than the Act 2 town. Like I said, I'm not going to be any faster if I take that skill point or not. I always like to do this trial after I get anything I can get to make me faster. So, for example, as a witch, I can get Dark Arts.
But do you usually
shadow,
not take the movement speed node on the left of Dark Arts?
not anymore. I think
Alright.
that it's pretty inefficient.
When I'm ready.
I find that 4% movement speed is nice and all, but you'd only do it in like maybe an Act 10 world record. You'd much rather have the skill points elsewhere, as it allows for a lot of other opportunities at different timings. But I would not do this trial unless I was like 18 on melee. That's because you can put faster attacks on Leap Slam. If you're a ranger, and you already got all your movement speed nodes, then you can just go ahead and do it because you're just using Smoke Mine. Here, I'm going to go ahead and grab the skill point. Now I'm planning ahead again, and I know that I need some Scrolls of Wisdoms. I've got the alterations I already need, and I'm going to need a couple ruby rings, so I'm going to go ahead and pick up an iron ring if I can find one. Doesn't look like I found one here, that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and pick up a devouring totem instead. I'm going to go to the Act 2 town, and I'm looking to see if I can find either an iron ring or a ruby ring. The reason why I'm looking for an iron ring, hopefully I can find one, is so that I can sell the iron ring with a skill gem so that I can get a resist ring just like this. Now you remember that we have 2 essences. I can go ahead and essence as both. That's actually a really good ring. The reason why I know that's a good ring is because all you look for in gear is life and resist. So this is 35 life. It's got 15% fire res. That is a good ring right there.
Yeah, and
That's
then if that
something
had
I
an
like.
open suffix, you could craft resist on it as well.
Yep, if it had an open suffix, I probably wouldn't have even used it for the wand craft. I would have just cried and just used it myself. And just hope that I found something else by 20. Now, obviously, you might not always get the currency for the wand craft in every single run. That's okay. There's a decent amount of runs where I only get one wand craft. Earlier today, I raced against Exile and Ship in an Act 10 world record race, and I actually only had one wand craft going into Act 3, and then I finished out on top because the time that you get from Acts 2 to 3 doesn't matter too much in a very long race like that. At least that's a very long race to me. So here I see that there's a decent pack. I know that I'm level 19. I want to be about level 20, and I want to hit that in around Northern Forest. Northern Forest is a very good zone for experience. If you find yourself behind in experience, or if you're playing Soul 7 Hardcore for the first time, I'd recommend farming zones like Northern Forest, doing things like docks quite heavily. These are very good zones for experience. So
And
here's actually a zone that I'll talk to Einhar.
you have a class tomorrow, right? Or in a few hours?
Oh yeah, I do.
We can stop after a while then. Be a good time.
Yeah, sounds good. I mean, Steel Mage asked me to stall as much as humanly possible for him, word for word. That was what he said. So
Oh, really?
yeah, he said that the longer I take, the better, because he's got the best presentation of his life. Waking up, something like that.
Steelmate saw your presentation, just started hammering one out. No,
Yep.
seriously, awesome job on that. It's definitely something I'm going to be implementing for future lessons.
Thank you. I just kind of a
When I'm ready.
I don't know. I like thought of it, and I was like, that'd be a good idea. I'm not very good when I just speak with the script, so I'm gonna throw some stuff in there. Why not? So this is a really good pack. This is a magic pack with a rare mob next to it. Rare mobs actually give a decent amount of XP, but they take way too long to kill on their own. However, I had justification to kill that rare because there was already a magic pack near it. So those are the kind of decisions that go into when do I stop to kill like a rare pack. Like I'm not gonna stop for that bear. Not only is a rare pack next to almost nothing, it's a bear, so it has a lot more health. Here you can grab a movement speed craft. It costs 3 augmentations. I've already got 15 MS, so I'm feeling pretty good. Here, I don't think it's going to be in this corner, but I'm still going to check anyways. There's a magic pack. I'm going to stop for that. We're level 20, so we can do the wand craft. Now, I don't like to do the wand craft right away, and I'll show you why. The reason why is because, Ball over Soul actually allows me to finish college, get married, have 3 kids, and become Bob in the time that it takes Vol over Soul to rise up. And so I like to prepare my entire vendor, wand craft in that time. Wow, this is really scuffed layout. I actually wasn't going to go over this way, but I guess I got lucky. In the Ancient Pyramid, you can see that it's going to be in one of these
Alchemy.
3 random corners. I don't know which corner it is, so we like to go just from one side to the other. And then from then on out, it's going to be in the opposite corner. And it's always going to get smaller because pyramids get smaller at the top. Go ahead. There's a magic pack, another frost one will kill it. I need to make sure I have at least 1 portal scroll. I do. So you can see that I started in that corner, so I'm going to go to the opposite corner now. And we're going to go over here. Boop. And it doesn't connect, so I'm sad. And I like to stop just every now and again for a few mobs. And this doesn't connect either, so I'm even more sad. Alright, there we go. Frostbomb on its own isn't always enough to kill some of these monsters, and so I like to throw Frostbomb with a single Stormblast Mine. A lot of people say that they dislike Frostbomb, however I find that I enjoy it. So this is actually why I stopped for this, is because I can take all my gems out, I can do this. Got all the time in the world to prepare my vendor recipe. So I've got everything I know I need to do. I can prepare the 2 rings, yep, everything looks in order. So I'm going to sell 2 wands, 2 alterations, and 2 rare rings. The type of ring it is matters. Now this is going to be an Armageddon brand run much later on, and so it's going to be important for me to use that. We're going to just go ahead and socket some stuff together. Boop, there we go.
And do remember to make sure that you are level 20 for this. I've seen a couple of times in races where people do this recipe at level 19 and suddenly they don't have wands.
So even though, even though a Vol over Soul is one of the bosses that takes less damage at the start of the fight, there are lots of bosses like Merville, for example, like Brutus, that you can't really pre-trap very well, because they take less damage for the first few seconds of the fight. You can see that we still do plenty of damage, and Vol over Soul went down in 33 minutes, in 41 seconds, with all passives and all skill points done.
Very nice time. And trials, wow. That's really good. Yeah, wow, very impressed. That was very well prepared too.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you for joining us here today. We can
No
take
problem.
a couple of questions from chat and stuff before we let you
Sure.
leave, so Steelmates can get a little bit more time.
No problem. A couple notes I want to make are that these wands are actually pretty much ready to go till maps. I think this render recipe is really, really strong. I wish other skills or other archetypes like a ranger Minion has their own recipe, but it's very annoying to do. I wish that Ranger and Melee had their own versions that made them so strong. Because I know that I can keep these weapons for a very long time, I'm going to go ahead and go back to town and show you guys that you can in fact craft resists. So what I would do from this point on is I would go ahead and look at my character page, look at my defensives, and see really good cold res, really good lightning res, but not very good fire res. So I'm going to go ahead and craft fire res, and I'll craft something else. Doesn't really matter what else.
Somebody
I don't like to
asked
put.
if you ever augment your ones, which I would say no, just because you generally craft resist.
Yep, exactly for that reason. Why fire recipe on the ones? This is because I don't want to say okay. So Pac invented this strategy with cremation. Racers made fun of him. Turns out that Pac was right all along. Cremation's really, really good. You can throw down self-cast Desecrate, throw down 3 cremations, and a single wave of conviction. The boss will die. Like you get to Dominus, and everything will be melted. I decided that because I like to use fire, and everybody else at the time was using lightning one crafts, they were using elemental weakness, and they were going cremation, which is mostly fire damage. So they had this like weird hybrid of like lightning and fire. And I came up with the idea one day where I was like, what if we just used the fire craft and we just used Armageddon brand? Then we could use flammability, and we could use combustion with Armageddon brand to reduce their fire resist even lower. And it turns out that this was just like way stronger than using the lightning craft.
Put us back on like the podcast type screen. So what about somebody asked, what about Quicksilver of Adrenaline? Do you start rolling for that at some point? And if so, when?
No, you need many alterations for any other things. Yo, Gucci, I didn't claim my own my own thing over it. I just generally started doing the firecraft. I did the Armageddon craft or the Armageddon brand. I didn't invent combustion. That was somebody else. But I used just standard Armageddon brand onslaught in a race against Exile. I remember that race very fondly because I didn't win a single name on lights, meaning that Exile led the entire race until the very end of the race.
And that's another speedrunner, for those of you that don't follow the scene that much, Exile, and he's only been playing Path of Exile for 6 months, I think, and he's already one of the fastest players.
Correct. Exile's really, really good. I was playing against him earlier today.
Yeah.
I mean, I just looked at my friend's list earlier before this, and he was practicing off stream for Neck 10 run.
Yeah. So if you feel like you're too late to start learning or to start racing, it's just about practicing.
Yep.
How often do you practice, and for how long?
So I practice almost every day, just for a few hours. Just kind of switch it up every now and again. Depends on if there's a race nearby, if there's some sort of event that I want to practice for in particular. A lot of people ask me things like, how can I practice? I tried to practice. I sat down for 10 minutes last night. I got to Brutus, and I couldn't do it, man. I hate it. It's so boring. And to that I say, don't worry about it. You don't. If your goal isn't to become a really good speedrunner, then don't worry about practicing too much. Maybe just do like one run before the league start in your free time when you really have nothing else to do. I find that I have a lot of time just laying around, not really doing anything, and so I'm like, well, I might as well just do an Act 5 run just for the fun of it, just kill an hour or so. Most other people aren't going to be like that. In those cases, I'd recommend studying more than practicing in that case.
Nice. Well, I think we're gonna round off the session here, and then we're gonna have like a 10-15 minute break, and then we're gonna have Steel Mage coming up next with how to survive on SSF. So it's just an episode about solo self-found and stuff like that. First off, can we get a big yep and a clap and a thank you to Tytykiller for his insane preparation? Really good job. Way better than I would have done. So thank you so much for joining us here today. Make sure you go follow him on Twitch, Twitter, everything.
Yep.
Definitely earned a lot of Twitch Prime subs here, Tai. That's really good job.
All right. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to go pass out. I got class in like 3 hours. I'll see you all tomorrow.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks so much for joining
Bye.
us.
Thank you for having me.